We're going to have a discussion, also demonstration about qualitative analysis using NVivo. So let me make the PowerPoint ready. These are the things that we're going to talk about today, right? So there are about 5 or 6 things that we're going to talk about. You already know what qualitative data is all about and analysis. If you don't know, let me know. I can explain them to you. So imagine that you have collected your data. How do you prepare your data for the analysis? How do you set up NVivo? And how do you start the coding process? And I'm going to want to show you the manual coding and using AI within NVivo, right? And I think this is a very good time in terms of analyzing your data that you can explore using AI to help you. You don't have to fully use AI. You can also use an aspect of it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And also developing themes. Also, after you have, developed code, the next thing that you have to think about is how can I create themes to help me to address my research questions? So we're going to talk about that. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is visual representation. Sometimes it's very important when you are presenting your finding, makes sense for you to do some visuals because, some of the readers are visual learners, and sometimes it's good to create maybe word cloud or a table to summarize or add a little bit of value to what you are presenting. So we're going to really talk about and explore that area. And as I said, if you have any question, please feel free to jump in and ask, and I'll be happy to address them for you. And you can type in your question about I prefer for you to talk, and then we have a discussion. So what is qualitative analysis? So qualitative analysis is all about making sense of your qualitative data. So what is a qualitative data? It's just a non-numeric data that is not about numbers. It's about words, it's about visual representation, it's about artifacts, it's about documents that you can make sense of. So what you are doing is that you are extracting meaning and looking for pattern in the data and then summarizing that information and presenting that information to your audience. So to put it simple, you are just summarizing data by making sense of the data. How do you summarize the data? You can summarize by, just, looking at the main issues that you talk about and then provide that information. But how will people believe what you found? You have to pass through some step. You have to show how you arrive at the summary, which is the themes. This is where, there's a need for you to think about the structured process of analyzing your data. You can do it manually, or you can use a software to do that. And today we're going to use NVivo. So NVivo is one of the qualitative software that you can use to organize your codes. How do you use to organize your code? You are going to the data, identify information that are significant, and develop containers. Containers are just codes, right? And then you extract that information that are significant and connect them or drop them into those containers. You can also use AI within NVivo to help you to develop code. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's really a powerful tool to, explore your data and also make sense and present in a meaningful way that people will understand what you found and believe what you found. We don't have one way of making sense of your data. The most important is to be systematic. Show your work for people to believe what you found. Anything that you feel comfortable. You can even analyze your data manually. You don't have to use any software. It's still going to be credible if you can show me how you arrive at the theme. So there are many ways. You just have to choose the one that you feel comfortable. We don't have one way. That's what I like about qualitative analysis. What we're going to do is we're going to use this study. Is not actual study. I developed it from ChatGPT, just demonstration purpose. So think about it. Let's say you are a researcher, you want to explore people's perception and views concerning responsible innovation, right? There's a lot of AI tools coming up and people are thinking about, okay, what are the risks? What are the benefits, right? So responsible innovation means that considering the benefits and the risks and making sure the benefit outweigh the risk, and you are taking into consideration all factors that will prevent or reduce the risk, right? So These people were interviewed, innovators, policymakers, regulators, and also general public. They were interviewed. And then there are 10 participants, and they were asked about how they conceptualize and apply principles of responsible innovation. What are the barriers fostering responsible innovation? And also, what are the opportunities, right? And these are their demographics. So in this case, I have 10 transcripts. Let me open one of the transcripts for you to see. So let me double click here. As I indicated, before you send all your information to NVivo, you have to clean your data. So you see how the data has been cleaned. You have given a label, participant P1, and you can give the person, who maybe the position, you can put it there, but, just indicating P1 is fine. So you see here that there's no names here. There's no identifiable information. Make sure that you clean all your data before you send it to NVivo, right? So similar like what I have here. So I have it for all of the 10 participants. So, and also in case you want to bring demographic information, it's not required for you to bring demographic information into NVivo. Right. But if you plan to explore further after developing themes, you want to, let's example like gender, you want to know the themes that are really closer to a specific gender or a specific group of people, you'll be able to, it's good for you to upload the demographic information, right? So if you are not planning to compare and contrast, explore the groups that you have, you don't have to bring demographic information to NVivo. If you want to bring demographic information, there are two ways. You can create a table in Excel like what I've given you here, the participant ID. You see the P1, P2, P3. It should align with the name of the files, P1, P2, P3, no space. Any name that you give here, that should be the same thing here so that the system can match the demographics with the files that you're going to upload. And the other columns will be the categories that you have in terms of demographic variables. So as I said, it's not required, but in case you want to bring the demographic, if you can put it in an Excel spreadsheet like this, that would be great so that you can upload it and then the system can connect the demographics to the participant information. So this is what I have concerning the data. And let's start the first process, right? So the first step is to prepare your data. How do you do that? You have to transcribe, right? Your audio or video. You can code your audio or video in NVivo, but if you want a quality information, right? Let's say you want to do word cloud and other things, it's good for you to have the transcript inside NVivo. You get more out of NVivo if you have the transcript, right? As I said, you have to clean the transcript, take any irrelevant information, and also compile demographics. That's what we have done now. So the next step is to setting up NVivo. How do you set up? You just open NVivo. I think you have NVivo 15, the current one. So normally you double click. Make sure that anything that you want to upload, you have closed that information, right? So I'm going to close this one. I will upload this demographics. All the files, you have to close them so that, you'll be able to upload. So this is what you're going to see when you click on NVivo 15. If you are using Mac, it's going to be a little different from this one, but it's similar, right? And the good thing is that I have a lot of YouTube videos about how to use Mac for your analysis using, so I can share the YouTube videos about Mac, right? But I think the same kind of idea, you open and then click on New Project. And you give it a name that you remember, a name that in case you close your document, you can go back to your computer and search for it. So for this example, I would just say Project Y, right? So that's the name of my project. I browse and find a place that I want to put it. I want to put this information maybe on my desktop so that I can easily find this project. And I click on Save. And you can give a description if you want, but it's not required to give it a description about the project, right? Because you already know the project name. But if you want, you can give a description. And then you go to Next. So this is where if you want the system to auto-save your project as you are working on it, you can click on Yes. If you don't want the system to auto-save and you want it to remind you every 15 minutes or every 40 minutes or you can choose any time. The system can remind you and you can click on save. To be on the safer side, I always say yes. I want the system to automatically save my information as I work on it. So there's an option here, discovery file location. In case you lose your information, where do you want that data to be stored? So it's a second kind of backup information. So you can browse and decide where you want to store it. If you have downloaded your NVivo, the system has already created a file for you called NVivo recovery, right? So you can leave it there, and whenever you lost it, you can go to NVivo recovery, you search for it, and you'll be able to get access to it. So you go to create, right? Then the system will create your project for you. So to take a little while for you to create, and this is what you're going to see. You can click on skip, tar, and click on close. The first thing that you have to do is to upload your document, right? If you have audio, you can upload it. If you have transcript, you don't have to upload the audio. And so I go to import, right? And I go to files. Then I select the first one and then press on shift. I select the last one. This is for Windows, right? Mac will be very different, but the same thing as the way that you select a lot, couple and multiple documents, the same style. You select all of them and you click on open. And then you go to import. You can create cases for them, but I don't want to confuse the system. You just import without creating cases. So think about cases are files that you are creating for each participant, right? It's just the same thing as if you are a student, you are admitted in a school, they have your file that have all your demographics, that have all your grades, right? So when you pull out the file, they have all the information. Files cases here are important because it's just like a glue that connects participant transcript and also demographics. You see that? So a file is created for each participant so that, or a case is created for each participant so that you'll be able to link their demographic information to their transcript. Right. And as I said, it's not required to create cases if you are not going to use it. But for now, let's hold on. We'll create the cases later. Right. So you go to import, and the system will import all the information here. So now you have all your participant information. Don't worry about the arrangement. The system sometimes you see 110, that doesn't arrange it well. So don't worry about it. It happens all the time. Just leave it alone. The most important is you have uploaded all the transcript. Let me ask, is anybody using open-ended survey that they want to upload into NVivo? Open-ended survey. In case you want to upload open-ended survey, I can show you. So you see here, the document I sent it, one of them is open-ended responses. So let me open it and show you. In case you don't have interview transcript, but you have a responses like this, right? And all the participant information. There's another way of doing that, right? So let me quickly show you, although we are not going to analyze this one, but I just want to show you that it's possible for you to upload open-ended responses, right? So let me create a new project. We'll come back to this project. Let me create a new project, right? And then I'll say project Z. Imagine you gave participant open-ended responses, open-ended questions, and then they came up with the open-ended data, right? So you go to next, yes, here, create. So this one, you go to import, and then you import it as a survey because in an Excel spreadsheet, right? And you choose Excel, right? And then you choose open-ended responses. And here it's just telling you that how the system is going to organize the information. Cases, as I told you, the system is going to create files for each participant, right? So if you have 100 participants, you're going to have 100 cases. Open-ended responses, the closed-ended response will be like a demographic information, right? So it's gonna create another table for you that have the demographic information, right? If you have it in the survey. The open-ended responses will be the one that you're going to create codes, the one that you're going to analyze, right? So it's just telling you how it's going to group the information that you're going to upload. You go to next, and this is the preview of how your data is going to look like, right? So I have my participant ID, demographic information, and open-ended response for the 3 questions that I asked. I go to next, and you don't have to do anything here, but I go to next. The system is telling you that it has seen the information and it has grouped them based on if its demographics is going to be close-ended responses. And then you can see here that open-ended, the ones that you're going to code, the system has identified as open-ended. The system can make mistakes. Let's say this one's supposed to be a demographic information and the system mistakenly did it as open-ended. You can easily change it. So this one is just telling you that this is what it has grouped them. Do you want to change anything? If not, you go to next. It also asks you whether you want the system to auto code for you, automatically code and develop themes for you. You don't want that for now. If you want, you can let the system do it for you. But the problem about auto coding is that it may not address your research question because the system doesn't know the question that you want to answer, right? So it might not be useful. So I uncheck that and I click on finish. So as you can see here, it's downloading and now you have your survey here. You click on close and then that information is here. And then it has brought all the information that you can see here. It has the same thing that you have in Excel. And the good thing is that when you click on the arrow here and go to open-ended, so the questions that you ask participants and their responses are being grouped for you. So for this question, right, if you double click on it, it will show you the list of all the responses that participant gave. So you can even start the coding process from here. So that's all about the uploading the survey. For this presentation, let's focus more on the interview, but if you have any question, I'll be happy to address them for you. So when you look at the PowerPoint, we have now uploaded the transcript, right? Now what we have to do is that we're going to upload the demographics. Before you upload the demographics, you have to create cases for each of the participants. How do you do that? You select the first one, and then you press on Shift to select the last one. You right click and go to create as cases, right? You are creating file for each of them. You click on that, and then you leave that one alone. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to assign into any classification, but you just create cases for them. You click on OK. When you create case and you want to see the cases, you can click on cases and you see here all the cases have been created. So you see how the case signs are here to show that you have created the cases. Now is a good time to bring the demographics. How do you do that? You go to import and you go to classification and you go to import classification sheet. The same thing as import demographic variables, right? So you click on that, you browse and look for the information. So you see demographics here, right? In Excel, I click on it, I go to next. Make sure that you change from file classification to case classification because you are classifying the cases, right? You are making sure that the demographics are linked to the cases and also the files are linked to the cases. So you always have to choose case classification, right? You go to next and then check as name and make sure that you go to select because we already created cases for them. You make sure that this place has been highlighted, showing that you already have the cases. You just want to connect the demographic information or connect the demographic variables or the data for each of the case that you have. So you click on OK here, and then you click on Finish. Now you have the demographics here, right? And also each of the participants, their demographics, everything is here. So now you are done with bringing demographics. As you can see from the PowerPoint, the next step is to create containers for the research question. The reason why you interview participants is to help you to address your research question, all right? So looking at this example, we have three research questions, three main research questions here, right? So what we have to do is that we want to create containers for the research questions so that when we go through the data, we create codes and put them under their respective research question, right? So we don't code to address the interview questions. The interview questions are questions that help you to extract information from participants. After extracting the information from participants, there's no need for you to use the data to answer the interview questions, but you use the data to answer the research question. So that's why you always have to create containers for the research question, right, that you have. So first, you have to label your research question. So you see here that this is my research question, and this is the label for the research question. The label doesn't have to be perfect, but it's something that reminds you about the research question. It can be in between 2 to 5 words representing the research questions. As you can see here, for this research question, this is the label. For this research question, this is the label. So these are labels that I'm going to use to create containers. Let's go back to NVivo. How do you create containers for the research question? You go to codes, right? And then you make sure you close here. This empty space is where you're going to create containers for the research question. You right click, new code, and then you can copy and paste the label. So you can see here, RQ1, remind me that it's for research question 1. And then under description, you can bring the research question here, right? Just to remind you that it's for research question 1, right? And you check aggregate coding from children. Don't worry about this. I will explain later to you the reason why I check this place, right? And then click on OK. We're going to do the same thing for the second research question. We right click, new code, and then we bring the second research question label here, and then we bring the research question here. And then aggregate coding, we do the same thing for the third one. Right click, bring the description, and then I'll bring the label for the research question. And then aggregate coding from children. Done. Now we have containers for our research question. Now we're going to start the coding process. Let's look at a PowerPoint. What's the next one? So then we are going to the third step, right? The third step is generating codes. So we have two ways of generating codes, right? We have the manual coding process and also AI-assisted coding process. So this is a manual coding, how it looks like. So the manual coding, this is what you do. You go through the data, look at each statement line by line, identify information that are significant, generate codes that represent the significant information that you have extracted, and put them under the research question, right? So that's what the manual coding process is. I always use this example. Not all of the information that participants are giving you is relevant, considering the research question. When you go to the grocery store, right, not all of the things that are there are important for you. You go into the grocery store to buy items or ingredients that will help you to cook a meal. The meal that you're going to cook is the research question. The items that you have to buy are the codes, right? So you go there, I want this item, I don't want this item, right? So the same thing. You go into the participant transcript, oh, this information is important, it's addressing research question 2. Oh, this information is important, it's addressing research question 3. You are not responsible of coding everything that you see in the data. You are only coding what is addressing the research question. There's also, if you think some information is important, but it's not addressing any research question, there's a solution. You can right click here, new code, and type other findings, right? You went to the grocery store, you are not thinking about buying something, but you saw something, oh, I think I can use it for next week. Let me buy that. So that information might be relevant, but it's not addressing your research question. You can put them under a container called other findings or other observations. You can go and review that later, but the most important thing is to find information that are addressing your research question that you have. All right. So now that we have created containers, we close this one and we go back to files and we start a coding process. That's a manual coding. I'm going to show you the AI one later, but this is a manual coding. You click on this, double click to open, and then you have the information on the right side, right? And then you click on code to bring the container for the research questions here, right? Let me see here. You can pull this one here so that you can see everything, right? So what you're gonna do is that you go through and if there's any information that you think is significant, you do the coding, right? I have some list of code that I've already created. Let's assume that you are going through the data, right? And you think that this information is relevant, right? This sentence is relevant. What do you do? What you can do here is that you first make sure that you understand what the participant is telling you. What is this participant telling me? Oh, okay. The person is telling me about we have to take our work very seriously because in terms of healthcare, there's a lot of risk, and then people's life are at stake. So we have to be very careful when we bring innovation. We have to make sure that it's not adversely affecting the lives of people. It's really improving the lives of the people or the patients, right? So that's my understanding what this person is saying. Then you think of, okay, which of the research question is this information addressing? Maybe it's about how they conceptualize and apply the principle of responsible innovation. Okay, now that I know where I want to drop it, what kind of label should I use to represent this information? Right. So one label could be, a label can be between 2 to 5 words, right? Maybe you can say the need to take the impact of the innovation seriously is too long, right? So you decide a label that best represents the information and also address the research question. Let's assume, because of time, we don't want to think through too much. Let's assume that you already know the code, right, that you want to use. You can click on the research question and click on new code, right? And then you can put the label there, right? Maybe considering risk-related innovation, right? The code doesn't have to be perfect, but the most important is fairly represent what they are saying, right? And you also have to be very careful that you don't bring your own understanding into it. You don't want to, you are not a participant. Your role here is that like a reporter, you are reporting what they have given you. So you have to bracket or put aside your previous knowledge about a subject matter or your preconceived ideas and let the participant speak to you. What is the participant telling me? The participant telling me there's a need for you to consider all the risk in relation to innovation, right? Under description, you can define the code, but it's not required. If you understand or you remember the meaning of this, you don't have to give a description. But you can also give a description if you want. You can say this code represents participant expression of the need to consider the risk involved carefully when you are bringing new innovation, right? You can define that. Sometimes it's very important to define. After that, you click on OK, right? You see here that it's an empty container because under files is 0, under references is 0. Files are the number of participants. References are the quotations that you're going to drop. See when I drag, so you select, drag, and drop. Right? Now the numbers has changed from 0 to 1. This means that within the container, you have dropped this information there, and it's from one file. You go through, if you see anything that is important, we like this one, if this one is important, addressing the first research question, you create a container. So this one, what do you think, looking at this one, what phrase should we use to represent this information? What is this participant telling us? Something about simulating first before you apply or use the innovation, right? So exploring possible scenarios, right? Is that okay with that? Okay, so now if you were okay with that, you click on the research question, you go to new code, and it can say exploring possible. It doesn't have a spell check, so you have to be very careful. Use. Right. And then you can define it if you want to, and then you click on OK. Now you can just drag and drop it into that. Right. So this is what you are doing. Whenever you go through and you see something, let's say this one is also talking about exploring possible scenarios, you can drag and drop, right? So this one is talking about, so you always have to look at is if you identify something that's significant, you always think about, is there any existing code that you can drop this information into? If there's no existing code, you create a new code. So your role here that you don't care about the number of code that you are creating. The principle is that let me create a new code if none of the existing code can house this information. So when you get some information that's significant, you don't drag and drop it into a container of the research question. You create a container under the research question and drag and drop, right? And you see when you go to right click here and go to code properties, right? And when you're using Mac, when you control click and you go to get info, right? That's the alternative for code properties, right? So when you go there, I check aggregate coding from children, right? What you're telling the system is that whenever you put information here, it should add up and put on top. So you see here, 1, 2, it adds up and put 3 there. When I put any information here, let's say I put this one and put it here, it add up to be 4, right? So you are telling the system, add for me and put it here. So that's why you check aggregate coding from children. Let's see, when I uncheck, here will be 0. There's nothing there, right? Because now the system is not adding everything up and putting the huge container for the research question, but always check aggregate coding from children, code properties and check here, and then everything will be adding up. So let's say another one is about the barriers. You also create a container related to the barrier and put the information, the same process. When you finish going through this transcript, you close it, and then you go back to files and double click on the second transcript and then click on code to bring the containers here, the same process. Oh, this one is talking about maybe exploring the possibilities. You drag and drop it into that. Oh, this one is talking about something different. You create a new container and put that information into. Oh, this one is talking about something that is not related to the research question, but it's very important for me to take note of it. I create a container here and then put that information in there. You see here exploring possible scenarios, right? When I double click on it, it will open the container and it will tell me where I got the information from. You see here, this information is from P1. You click on that and it will take you to the file where I coded. You see that? Yes, so it's not needed for you to do that. You can do that, but it's not needed because I'm not planning to put anything under there.
That
Oh,
again.
in case you want to edit your transcript, maybe something was typed wrong, you can check on edit here and you can change things here. And then after that, you can uncheck so that in case you type something, it doesn't appear here, right? So you can always edit. If you want to see where you have coded, right, you can go to highlight and go to code and then click on none for now and go to coding for selected items. You go here and you check all these places, right? And then it will show the place that you have coded, right? So I like the idea of going to highlight and then you select the codes that you want it to show on the document areas that you have coded instead of going here and say that all coding. Because if you do that, it will select everything and you don't know which one that you have truly coded. When it comes to qualitative study, we are an instrument, right? So this means that we decide the kind of code that we have to use. But what drives our decision is the research question, right? The research question, the meal that you are going to cook will drive what you're going to take from the grocery store. We cannot totally eliminate bias, but we can control or manage bias or subjectivity. When you are doing quantitative study, you want to eliminate bias. When you're doing qualitative study, we manage bias. We don't eliminate. You cannot overly eliminate. If you want to appreciate an artwork, you always say, who did this artwork? Oh, this person. Oh, wow. Okay. you add value when you know who did it. Why who did it is important because of the person's background or the person's experience. So our background and experience affect what we choose. But in order to manage, you always remind yourself that you are not a participant, you are an instrument, you are just a reporter. You want to listen to participants and extract information based on the research question and make sure that you are aware of your preconceived ideas, you are aware of your knowledge that you have, you put them aside and allow participants to talk to you. And that's what you are doing. So if you accept this situation, it helps a lot. There's no way that you're going to eliminate bias. That's why the theme that you come up with and the theme that I will come up with may be a little bit different. Why? Because my background and understanding might be different from yours, right? But it might be similar. How can it be similar? Because I took my background and biases aside a little bit so that I do not overly influence what I'm looking for, overly influence the sense that I'm making. So that your team and my theme will be similar, but it will not be the same. Right. And that's why in qualitative study, you always want to tell people who you are so that people will appreciate the themes that you are coming up with. Okay. Let me show you the final product so that you see. So I was able to go through 5 transcripts, and you can see the code here for the first research question. I have a list of codes here, right? And also you see the research question 121 significant information, that's reference, and from 5 files, 5 participants, and these are individual codes and they are relevant information. So another thing that you have to think about is, can you use AI to help you with the coding? Yes, you can do that, but there are some steps that you have to focus on. What you have to do is that for AI, you have to make sure that you are using the current tool, right? So you can see here that I'm using the current one because I see AI assistant here on my right side here. And then make sure that you log on, because if you don't log on, click on this little place here to log on. It will not highlight for you to use. So make sure that you have logged on into the system before you can use AI assistant. How do you use AI assistant? First, what you have to do is that you go through the data, the transcript, and then identify information that are significant. Instead of you developing codes, what you are doing is that you select the information that are significant and drop them into the research question. You select and drop them into the respective research question, right? That's what you are doing. You go when it's significant, you select and drop. So at the end of the day, you see something like this, right? So you have gone through the data, all the transcript, and then drop information that are significant and put them into the research question. You didn't create a code, right? After that, what you have to do is you right click on the research question, any of the research question that you want to generate themes, and you go to AI Assistant Suggest Chart Code. So the system will be going through all the information, relevant information in this container, right? And then the system will be suggesting codes for you, right? With AI. So as you can see here, I have all the information that have been dropped into this research question 3. I right click on it, go to AI Assistant, suggest child code, and then it will ask you to review the terms and conditions. This is just to inform you that your information will be sent to a third party, which is an AI tool system they didn't mention, for them to run your data and give you suggest themes for you, right? So you have to read this one, and if you agree, you check here, right? You confirm and click on OK. And this is what you're going to see, and click on generate. So when you click on generate, it will go through only the information that you have put into the research question container, and the system will generate codes for you. It's not perfect. Still, the system doesn't know your research question, but because you have identified information that are addressing the research question, there's a high probability that the information that it's going to give you might address your research question, right? So to go through, it will take some time, maybe a minute or two, and it will suggest code for you, and you have to review and make sure that they are truly addressing a research question. If not, you can take it out or you can adjust it. So that's how it's going to help you to do that, especially if you have a lot of data to go through, right? So as we are waiting, just to recap, you manually extract information that are significant and drop them into the container for the research question. And then you allow AI to suggest to you the code, and then you review and make sure that they are addressing the research question. So these are the three steps. You are analyzing the data, making sense of your data. And the system is suggested, as you can see, the system has suggested things for you here, and you have to decide, I don't want this, you uncheck, I don't want it, or I want that, I want that. You can review the significant information that are connected to this. If you feel okay, then you go ahead and then click on OK. When you click on OK, I've already done that because I don't want to do a repetition. If you click on OK, you go here, the information will be here, right? So as you can see here, it will indicate that it's AI that has generated for you, created by AI. And then you can even right click here and go to code properties and change the name if you don't think the name best represents. So you always have control over that information, right? So that's how AI can help you. You just have to make sure that the AI is just suggesting things to you. It may not address the research question. You just have to review and make sure that and you can also always delete if you don't think it's addressing the research question that you have, right? That's a way of AI doing it for you. So imagine that you finish the coding. Let's go to the next one. So the step 4, you can do it manually concerning developing themes, or you can use AI to help you to develop themes for you. So developing themes, I have a video on how to do that. The first step is to export all the codes, right? And then when you export, you sort them, you group them based on how they are related. And then you identify patterns and creating themes, and then you bring the theme back to NVivo, right? So imagine I have gone through and I created themes for the research question 1, codes for research question 1. I right click any place, right? I go to export list, and I say codes for, you can give it any name that you want, codes for maybe research question 1, right? And you look for a place to save. I want to save it on the desktop. Then the information will be on the desktop for me. I'll double click here. I've done only for research question 1. So you see the plus sign, you click here, you see all the list of the codes, right? If I've done for research question 2 and 3, you see the plus sign there. So now I have all these codes here. I want to categorize them so that I can develop themes. How do you do that? You just go to your Word document, right? You open a new Word document, and then you can create a table. You go to insert, create a table. It can be based on the number of themes that you want, right? Maybe you want about 6 themes, right? And then you make 2 rows, and here you can type cluster 1, and then you can copy cluster and then put it here. Gonna be cluster 2, because you're gonna group them into clusters, right? 4, 5, 5, maybe 6. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I didn't do this one. 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And I expand the last part here. And what I have to do is I go back here and select all the codes and bring them under this table so that I can refer to it. So now I have it. So now what you have to do is just group them. Thinking about a research question and think about a relationship between the codes, you can group them right here. And so we're finished with this one. You can eliminate it or you can cancel it if you want to. So you go to the next one, ethical impact assessment, right? Does it have any relationship with this one? Maybe this one is also talking about ethics. So you can break it here, you can decide where you want to put it. So because you are all talking about ethics, I may bring it here, right? So you just think about how are the codes related, accountability and transparency. Maybe this one will be in a cluster two, right? So you are grouping them based on how they are related. And then after grouping them, you label them based on this content, you put a label. That label will be the themes addressing the research question that you have. Right. So you go here, accountability, inclusive, engage. I think this one will may have nothing to do with all the three. So you put it here. So if it has nothing to do with the cluster, you put it in a new cluster. So that's what you're gonna do. You group them, you have to be flexible because sometimes you change your mind and bring this one back. After that, you'll be able to group them. So you see how at the end of the day, let me see, let me show you. At the end of the day, I was able to group them like what I have here, right? So you see for this, I group this one, and after that, I label the cluster ethical, risk, and governance. And then I group these, and then I label it as stakeholder engagement and inclusion, right? All these things here will be the themes addressing the research question. And then after that, what you have to do, you go back to NVivo and bring the themes back here. How do you do that? Let's go back to NVivo. You right click on the research question that you want to create a theme. You click on new code, and then in parentheses, you type themes to show that this is a new thing to be different from the other ones, right? And you copy the name of the theme, you put it there. Make sure that you check aggregate coding for children. You do it for all the 6 themes that you have, right? So theme, and then you bring the label for the theme there and the aggregate coding from children. So imagine that you have all the themes here. What do you have to do next? You drag and drop, right? So I have my themes here. So let's assume that this one is related to the theme, the last theme. I just drag and drop it to the last theme. This one may be related to the second theme. I drag and drop. So that's what you're gonna do. You drag and drop. So you see the process, you export all the codes, you categorize them, you develop themes and bring the themes back. And then you drag and drop the codes under the themes, right? And then you are done with the analysis. You have your themes addressing the research question that you have, right? Let's say you have difficulty coming up with themes. What are you gonna do? You can use ChatGPT to help you to categorize and develop themes for you, right? So before we go to ChatGPT, as you can see here, I haven't done this one. You see that there are the themes, and under the themes, you have the codes there, right? So you see that. So now you are done with the analysis. Imagine that you are having difficulty coming up with themes. You can use ChatGPT to help you. Let's go to ChatGPT quickly. So imagine we already have information about a study. So you can tell the system about your study and then maybe your research question, right? So you can start with one research question at a time, right? This is what my study is about, right? And then, so I put the purpose of the study and also the research question. I have already created codes. Can you review the codes and categorize them to generate between 5 to 6? You can indicate the kind of the number of teams that you want, teams. Or you can just let the system generate the number of teams for you, right? And you can say, here are the codes, right? And then you copy, go here, you see, this is done when you don't know how to categorize. ChatGPT can help you. You can copy here, and I have the codes for the research question one, and then I click on enter, and the system can go through and then do it for me. Now, the same thing, you can go back to bring these teams back NVivo, right? And then look for all these and then drag and drop them under the theme that you have. So you see how AI can give you rich information, but you always have to give a little background of your study so that the system knows what you want and what you are doing, right? So that's how AI can help you. You just go to ChatGPT, you can choose GPT 4.0, And then after system question, you'll be able to get that from the system. Visualization. How do you visualize? There are many ways, and I have my YouTube videos about that. How do you do the word cloud? We go to explore word frequency, right? So this one is, if you want to know the kinds of words participants use and how many times, this is where you have to use it, right? We'll go to word frequency and go to selected item, and then you can choose, let's say you want to know the kinds of words that they use in addressing the first research question, right? So you can choose this one and click on OK, and then run query. And the system will list the words here. As you can see, some of the words are not going to be helpful, like also and maybe just, right? But when you go click on the word cloud, it can give you options about the visual representation, about the kinds of words that they use, the bigger the font, the higher the number of time they use the word. Word cloud is important if it's going to add value to what you are presenting. First, if you don't understand what is going on, then don't show it because you're going to confuse your audience. So make sure that you understand, and you can change the color if you want to. So you can change it to this one. You see here that also is, they say also and just a lot. You don't want to see that in that word cloud. You can right click on that and go to add to stop list so that it will be removed from that. And you can also remove just from here. And then when you finish, you can run it again so that the system will take those words out. So now they talk about understand ethical things, patient, maybe audit. So let's say you are talking about a specific theme about the need for ethical review, the need to think about the patient when you are bringing innovative tools and other things, the risk involved. You can show this one to show the kinds of words that they use. You see that they use the word understand a lot. They use the word ethical a lot. If you want to know more about how they use a specific word like audit, you can right click on it and go to run test search query. When you do that, it will give you this information and click on word tree, and it will show you the kinds of words that they use before and after the word audit. Right, so you see here, if you want to see everything, you can right click on it and go to undog so that it will pull up that information so that you see that information clearly. So you see here, if you click on it, you see the words before and after, right? What participants said. If you want to increase the number of words before and after, you go to word cloud and increase it, right? And if you see the context, you can reduce it if you want to, and you can right click and export so that you can present that information. If you want to know where this information is coming from, you can double click and it will take you to the document, right? Or the place where the information was found, right? So it was participant 4, P4. And you can click on participant P4 document and it will show you where exactly that information was taken from, right? So you see where I started with the word frequency, and you can also export this one if you want to export. You can right click and export. You can do the same thing for the documents, right? If you want to do the same thing for the document, you can uncheck this one. You can go to files and choose any of the participant document and run the same thing. You can choose any place that you want. You can also choose a specific theme. Let's say you are talking about this theme and you want to show the kinds of words that they use. You check that theme and then click on OK and run query. And then to show you visual representation about the kind of words that they use, right? If it's consistent with what you're going to talk about, this one will be very good. You can export it and use it. Another one is matrix coding query. This is useful, especially if you want to see the kinds of themes that came up and then what groups are connected to a specific theme. Let me see the case. Okay, now cases have it. Okay. Select row. Let me bring second row. Third row, not this one. And there's a third one and the last one. Okay, so let's go here and then select the themes. About 3 themes here. Run query. So as you can see here, when you look at this table, innovators, right? Those innovators, they are linked to almost all of the themes, right? The numbers here are the number of significant information that was extracted from their files. So you can see the 3 significant information that is selected from their files that are linked to this theme. 3 significant information. You can see here that for policymakers, is 0 here. This means that they have no link to this theme. Nothing was extracted from their files to be connected to this theme. So you can see here that for policymakers, they are connected to the first, third, and the fourth theme. The public is connected to only this one, right? And if you want to know the kind of statement that are connected to this one from this participant, you can double click and then it will take you to all the 3 significant information and who are linked to that. So you can see that it's from P10, right? All these 3. So this one gives you an idea about who are linked to what theme and why, right? Why are not the public able to speak about the balance between innovation and regulation? Maybe they have no knowledge about that. They were not able to talk about the ethical risk assessment. And also you can also create a visual representation and about this one. This one looks complex. You can always go and change to the simple one. And then you can export by right-clicking on it and clicking on export here. So that's what I have for you. Visual representation is not required for presenting your findings, but it can add a little bit of value to what you are presenting, right? You can also export this table in an Excel spreadsheet and you can create a visual representation that you want to do. So this is what I have for you. I provide one-on-one consultation. If you want one-on-one consultation, we can meet and also help you to address any question that you have. These are my books. If you are interested, you can explore. If you are a professor, you can get it for free by clicking on the link there. So this is what I have. And if you want to contact me, this is my email address. And also you can check my website and also my YouTube videos. A lot of information out there for you.